Okay, so that was our health and wellness. We're moving on to innovative and best practices. So Yolanda, are you online? Let's see.
I am.
There she is, great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yolanda Reyes, and I am a senior graduating in a couple weeks with my bachelor's in human services. My internship is with the UCED Sonoran Center under Dr. Brandy James, who I am eternally thankful for. For me, it was a personal experience that first introduced me to my research topic. As a first-time mom, I am overly cautious and very protective over my twin girls. So when I started to notice that one of my daughters wasn't meeting the milestones as quickly as the other, I got worried. I was told to never compare my daughters and that every child is different. But as a mother, there's intuition and it's never wrong. So I don't know, I didn't know exactly what signs I should be looking for or what exactly I should be telling the doctor that she was or wasn't doing. But I tried to voice my concerns to the pediatrician as best I could. I was assured that she was going to be fine, but I still couldn't shake the feeling that there was something wrong. There was something not right. So I got on Dr. Google and I found information for my local intervention program. So not really exactly sure what it was about. I filled out a referral form, and within a matter of days, I received a call from a service coordinator who asked questions about my child and my family. I was given information about the following steps and was told that appointments were necessary to determine my child's eligibility. The first appointment was in my home, and a physical therapist, a speech language pathologist, and an occupational therapist came out to evaluate both Zuri and Athena. The evaluation was inclusive of both me and their dad and gave them a chance to assess their cognitive, receptive, and expressive language skills, their fine and gross motor skills, their social, emotional, and self-care skills. In my experience, it was a quick couple of days, and I was informed via email that a second appointment wouldn't be necessary because they were not eligible for services. So this was my experience with early intervention services. Early intervention is a term that's used to describe services received by infants and toddlers from birth to age 3, with developmental delays or at-risk children and their families. The services range from areas in cognitive, physical, communicative, social, or emotional development, and adaptive development. After parental consent, intervention professionals conduct an evaluation. This evaluation determines the eligibility of the child. Once eligibility is established, an individual family service plan is developed. The purpose of this plan is to establish where the child is and to determine the goals. Individual service plans are reviewed every 6 months and can be updated as necessary throughout the process. The success of the program revolves around family involvement, and getting the proper services and support can empower and enable a child and their families before they get to school age, and also give them the best chance for developing the skills needed for day-to-day activities. For me, it was very important to highlight the importance of these resources because not only can these programs have a great impact on the children, but on their families as well. The Arizona Early Intervention Program, known as AZIP, is Arizona's statewide interagency system of services and supports for families of infants and toddlers from birth to 2 years of age with disabilities or delays. There's a great need to serve children earlier in life, as the early stages are when the child's brain is most capable of change and is still developing. There's a shortage of quality early intervention programs and well-trained professionals with expertise in serving young children. And our goal is to bring awareness to early intervention services as we try to grow the early intervention and early childhood special education components within the Sonoran Center. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Yolanda. So since you are online and won't be able to do the networking session here, we will answer 1 to 2 questions, a couple questions between folks who are online as well as here in the room. If anyone has a question for Yolanda. Well, Yolanda, I have a quick question for you before we move on to our next presenter. So I know here on your poster, it's talking about how you've been working with the Sonoran Center to bring how that'll incorporate with some of the work that we're doing here with the community. Is there anything more you can share with us about that?
We're developing a program to be able to we're creating a platform to provide a training so that all the services can be on a equal playing field. And so everybody can have the same service and everybody can benefit from the evaluation from the assessments to the evaluations to the services.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we look forward to seeing how this work continues here through our center. Thank you so much, Yolanda.
Thank you.
And we did have one question online if we have time for that.
Sure, yeah.
From Michael, he just asked, did you escalate the denial of services?
In my case, it wasn't necessary because thankfully my girls didn't need the services, so they weren't eligible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Aaliyah.
Hello, my name is Aaliyah Washington, and I'm currently a senior studying speech, language, and hearing sciences. And I am also in the Certificate of Developmental Disabilities. And so for my research, I really wanted to find something that was related to speech in some sort of way, but also, of course, disability. And in doing so, I found the Motor Speech Research Lab at the University of Arizona that is directed by Dr. Darling White. And the research lab works with individuals with cerebral palsy and Down syndrome as well. And through the research, the reason why we wanted to look at this was because there is definitely limited research, and a lot of individuals with Down syndrome experience motor speech deficits, and these deficits often make it difficult for them to communicate effectively. So in this specific study, we did look at the speech breathing in individuals with Down syndrome. And some of the deficits can also be caused by impairments of the respiratory system. So that is why we looked at speech breathing specifically. And in this study, we found that while the individual with Down syndrome utilize similar lung volume range as the typically developing children, there were still apparent issues in efficiency and coordination between the respiratory, laryngeal, and articulatory subsystems. So something to think about. And if you want to ask me questions about that later, you are welcome to do so. And yeah, we hope that this research contributes to further research in speech breathing for individuals with Down syndrome, as well as we hope that it helps create new and effective therapies and intervention for individuals with Down syndrome, but also anybody who experiences unique speech difficulties. And yeah, I do want to thank Sonoran UCED for this opportunity, as well as Dr. Darling White. Thank you.
Our disability and public health course students.
Okay, hi. So I'm Morgan. This is
I'm Noemi.
And so we are from the Disabilities and Public Health class at the U of A. And we, throughout this past semester, have taken time to discuss and work on projects relating to accommodations for college students on college campuses. Because obviously, we are students on this campus. We want to see more things happen. And yeah.
Okay, so first, we looked at our objectives, and we feel like a lot of people that have disabilities, they don't really enroll into colleges or into universities because they feel that they are not included as much, or feel like they don't have a lot of accommodations to their disabilities.
And so when looking at this originally, we conducted a literature review collectively as a class, which our other classmates couldn't be here today, but we all took the time to go through and discuss everything. And we also, one of our assignments through this course was to go through and conduct interviews with someone with a disability. And through our research with that, we also were able to find plenty of information on, okay, if I were in college, or, oh, I am in college, this is what I want to see. And we took that into consideration also when working on this project. And we just did a lot of work with Google Scholar, but yeah, so first, like, we wanted to look at accessibility and accommodations on college campuses, obviously. And so at the U of A, we have the Disability Resource Center, which is fantastic. I know people that are working with them now. And so working with the DRC, they work on classrooms and accommodating for spaces where students need to be in lecture halls and whatnot, which I know can be a huge challenge, especially with seating arrangements and whatnot. But that, like, when looking at that, we found a lot of information regarding, okay, students can find different ways to enter buildings, or they can find different ways to sit at the top of a lecture hall rather than having to go down to the bottom like other students would. And also we looked at dining halls and how, like at the student union, for example, you don't need to use stairs necessarily to get into like the main area where they have like Chick-fil-A and all those silly little places. But we thought it was super interesting that like throughout the entire campus, there aren't accessible buildings. And furthermore, we looked at the social inclusivity of our campus and how some organizations may or may not be fully accessible to some students. Like, for example, we looked at like sports teams, because obviously we love our U of A basketball, we love football, we love all of it. And so we looked at, are they able to access these sporting events? Are they able to participate in sporting events? And we actually found that there are 9 adaptive sports teams at the U of A, which is fantastic because it gives students an opportunity to participate in things. And actually another thing, Greek life was something that we definitely wanted to touch because a number of students in our class are in it. And we found that because typically you would think like, okay, Greek life is not going to be accessible for people with disabilities. Like, it's not going to be accepting, whatever. But we actually found that it is more accepting in some houses versus others on the U of A campus. I found that in my particular house, we have students with cerebral palsy. We have students that are amputees. We have all of it. And finding differences in the houses that are ADA compliant or like have elevators or whatnot, we found that was super interesting because people would think, oh, I'm not going to sign up for recruitment in the fall because I can't. But we found that they can.
Yeah, and with that being said, like some of the recommendations that we came up with was like building more ramps within buildings that have like multiple stories, or making more elevators that are spacious also, because like to fit a wheelchair in, that takes we have to consider that. Or like for sports, specific coaches that accommodate to people like that have wheelchairs or are um etc, just people that have a disability or like blinds. And also just taking into consideration of being more inclusive with people with disabilities. So creating a more welcoming environment where people with disabilities feel that they are part of the U of A campus or any campus in general. Just making sure that they feel that they belong there and not being left out.
Yeah, that's it from us. And also, we are happy to answer questions later on after. Thank you, guys.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ray. I am also a senior at the University of Arizona, and I'm graduating from the Psychological Sciences program. And I put an emphasis for my minor in Care, Health, and Society. And I'm also in the certificate program. I did my project on accreditation requirements for genetic counseling programs. I was first introduced to genetic counseling when I was a sophomore in high school and have kind of been stuck on it since, but apparently waited until this semester to realize that none of the requirements for genetic counseling programs mention disability at all. I think it was a 14-page document detailing all of the requirements genetic counseling programs must meet in order to produce certified genetic counselors. There is a half sentence mentioning disability, where disability is mentioned just that one time, and it boils down to disability needs to be mentioned in the course. That's it. So I decided to come up with a accreditation guide based on the kind of guide that medical schools have on how to educate about disability, specifically developmental disabilities in genetic counseling programs. So I spent my semester in 3 specific areas, the first being a literature review. The second was doing bias intervention training with Dr. Stone in the Psychological Sciences program. And the third being attending in-person events and getting field experience to actually determine whether the interventions that I was learning would actually be appropriate for the kind of work that genetic counselors do and the kind of educational style programs use. The main findings that I had were, well, okay, I could honestly go on for this for hours. I ended up coming up with like an 8-page rubric. So this is really summarized. But the main things that I have are these 3 goals that you can see on the screen, where we discuss the kind of language that is used around disability, as well as the kind of skills that genetic counselors develop on how to interdisciplinary educate families who come in for counseling, as well as individuals with disabilities. And then also using not only disability-focused education overall, but incorporating individuals with disability in those educational interventions. Because as of right now, that's obviously not even a priority. I also used my bias interventions to come up with those main goals, and then I have actual guide requirements for the accreditation programs. And then I came up with recommendations and suggestions on how those goals could be met. Part of those include different kind of languages. So for example, one of the events I attended used a diagram that hadn't been updated in literally 25 years. And the language that was used included slurs. So the first requirement I had was that programs have to update their terminology every 5 years. I understand that science obviously moves very quickly. So I want to keep on top of that, but also I don't want programs to be burdened. The main focus is that individuals have to do their own research and come up with ways to stay on top of social and medical and scientific information. The second, I talk about different kinds of specific bias interventions that are effective in educational environments, specifically including contact with individuals with disability, Socratic style seminars where, you know, disability isn't necessarily the focus. You get a chance simply to interact with people you may not see on a daily basis. And then also in interviewing family members and individuals with disability about their experiences with the healthcare system and specifically with genetic counseling, because a lot of times those individuals don't get the chance to give feedback. And obviously they're going to have the most accurate feedback for genetic counselors in training and also current genetic counselors. I think that's really all I have. If you have any more questions or you want to ask me anything more in depth about my rubric, please come find me later.
Marissa and Kimberly.
Oh, sorry. I'm Marissa. I am a AmeriCorps member and a student worker at Artworks. I am a senior and I'm graduating from the School of Art. I just realized I'm probably one of the, the only ones from the School of Art here. So sorry about that. But yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kimberly. I am a senior this year as well. I will be graduating in May with a bachelor's in public health and a minor in Spanish. I am also here with AmeriCorps.
So,
Okay, so who we are. So we are also here with Artworks. Artworks is a Where I Belong project. It's also a person-centered scrapbook making workshop that we are doing currently. What it is, who it is for is people with IDD, so intellectual and developmental disabilities. And what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to help people with IDD interact with their caregivers or social interactions as well.
So this workshop is to enable adults with IDD, as Kim said, to identify, explore, and document important aspects of their lives. It's intended to help participants voice their ideas and needs and expand social connections in their community without the need of a support person. Sorry, I get nervous. So moving on to the methods, we developed a curriculum. It's 8 modules, and it is essentially a way for us to gather information that is the most pertinent to the individual creating the scrapbook. And those 8 modules are listed. It is communication and learning, communities and connections, roles and leadership styles, strengths and support needs, good, bad days, personal safety plan, routines, and culture and celebrations. So we have done a couple different pilot and adaptation programs. We did one with Tucson Parks and Recreation, and I believe that was last year. We had 10 participants, and in that program, we did modules 1, 2, 4, and 5. This really allowed us to finalize our worksheets, see what we could fix. And we did find that using more visual material and drawing boxes really helped. And then we added roles and leadership as well. And we solidified the 90-minute workshops. And then, sorry, we have our current project at Artworks. It's still ongoing. Right now, we only have 4 participants, and we have a variety of staff helping us currently. And with that, we're focusing more on the informed consent and teach back questions and making sure we do that one at a time as not to overwhelm. And we're also focusing on pre and post-op interviews and how that is structured. Want to talk about the learn?
Oh, yeah. So within this workshop that we have been doing at Artworks, we have noticed that our participants do better with, like, we have like emoji stickers to signify like during the good and bad days, when they're feeling good, when they're feeling bad, their facial expressions, how they show their emotions.
We also noticed with module 4, that is our strengths and challenges module. It is a very hefty module, so we find that we do need to allow for catch-up sessions that will allow participants to feel less anxious about completing a workshop or completing a scrapbook page in time. And then gathering information about the patients from families, teachers, respite people, staff prior to the scrapbooking really helped, especially learning their behavior tendencies, stuff like that. And then we also had to think about stamina for our participants. Doing 90 minutes continuously working on one thing can be really tiring. So we needed to do more breaks and check in a little bit more and see if they were willing to continue. And then short interviews, we need to continue to ask if they're willing to be filmed. Even if they gave permission earlier in the day, we still need to check in again because that might change. And then video recording, the environment really matters, lighting really matters. Making sure we do snack at an optimal time where you won't hear it in videos, that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is still ongoing. We are hoping to continue it at Aurora Valley Park and Rec and also with Opportunity Tree in Phoenix. So those are all ongoing. If you have any questions, I'm sure I'll be able to explain it better and off the microphone.
I do also want to mention that we do also have it in a Spanish version as well, just in case, like their parents are Spanish speakers.
Thank you. And thank you, Marissa. This has been your second year with this project.